Rappin with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So today on the live stream, I welcome Adam Sutherland from Frag Garage in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. What's happening there, Adam?
Not much, man. Hanging out in the garage.
You're live from the garage, the actual Frag Garage. Jeez, man. I mean, that's pretty freaking cool. We'll have to talk some more about that. Just a little bit about Adam. He has been in the hobby since 2000, and he, like myself, was a Reef Central Tank of the Month, but this was more recent in September 2015. That might have been one of the last ones, right? I mean, geez,
they pretty close to the end. Yeah. I don't know if it was the glory days of Tank of the Month, but you know, it was
the
definitely
swan
an honor
song
to do it. So yeah, I made it just in time.
He made it just under the wire. He eventually started selling frags from his tanks, which turned into a small business, and he is now full-time since COVID. There is a story behind that. He is probably the best-known stickhead in Western Canada and has done a few feature articles with Reef Builders. But before we start chatting with Adam, I want to thank the sponsors of this live stream, both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. I really appreciate them supporting the show, and I also appreciate you folks that are tuning in. Please spread the word. Don't forget to hit that like button so more people can find the live stream. And as always, encourage comments and questions in the chat. So Adam, man, we got a lot to talk about here, man.
Yeah, we're pretty fresh. We're fresh. We haven't talked much before, so it's all coming fresh.
We had a couple of pre-conversations, but I think those will, I definitely want to kind of drill down a little bit more in terms of what we're talking about and get a better idea in terms of how you like to run your systems right there. I don't know. Let's talk about the career change first. So we mentioned that you've been doing this full time since COVID, and what were you doing before the Frag Garage?
So yeah, most of my adult, teenager into adult life, I've been a musician, and I got into producing bands and ran a recording studio as my kind of main business. I had a studio space downtown here in Victoria for about 12 years. And I always had a tank, you know, from when I was about, I think 18 or 19, I set up my first tank. And it was always kind of the balance, you know, to the you know, the music was such a major thing for me, that having something that was kind of zen, like reefing, kind of balanced me out.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, over, I guess, the past 6 or 7 years, I just started to have so much extra coral that I had to start selling it a little bit locally. And then at one point I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll make a website. It'll be able to give me a little more of an identity and whatnot. And
it's more street
things
cred.
just started picking up. And then COVID kind of kicked it into full drive, because you know, gigs, playing live, stuff like that all went away. So that was a chunk of my income was gone. And people were all stuck at home working on their tanks. And, you know, people that, you know, had thought about maybe starting a saltwater tank were getting into the hobby. And, you know, COVID did a lot of good things for the hobby, you know, as much as it made shipping difficult and getting stuff from overseas for a while. I mean, I think it kind of kicked the hobby up a little bit. So, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now.
So, yeah, I mean, now that things have kind of calming down with the pandemic, do you ever see yourself getting back into the music, or are you all in now with the reef tank business?
I mean, music will never not be a thing for me. It's just that, you know, it became something that was very, I started to lose some of my love for the music production side of it, because I was producing out of a commercial studio where I wasn't always working with bands I wanted to work with. It was kind of like I was paying the bills, and then I would have some projects that I really enjoyed. Now, having a lot of my income coming from my frag business, basically I can pick and choose the occasional project that I like to work on. So, you know, it's quality over quantity now for music. And actually, my the videos on my YouTube channel, that's my music is in it.
Oh, really?
So I'm going to try to always produce my own music for my videos.
What kind of music?
Yeah. I mean, I've been producing a lot of electronic music lately, but I played in rock bands. I toured. I was in a signed band that toured. And, you know, I've done it all. I've gotten a good feel for like being on the road and stuff like that.
Yeah.
While maintaining a reef tank.
That's not easy. That's not easy. Producer Reef says, music producer and reefer, that's what I do. Well, there you go.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, so dude, you're in a garage, right? I mean, does anybody ever like hit the garage door opener like during the night by mistake, and like all of a sudden everything is like whoop, it's exposed to the elements?
Bad. No, but yeah, it's I mean, it's the garage is pretty safe. I mean, I guess somebody could try to hack into the controller out there, but
yeah, if you're going away on vacation,
parked out front.
I was going to say, going away on vacation, make sure those the clicker is like hidden or something.
Just take the battery out. No kidding. I never thought about that. It's a good idea. Yeah, this is about 500 square feet, so it's a pretty big double garage.
Oh wow.
And I got about probably over 1,000 gallons of systems in here. So, and I really like the size of the business that I have. Like I know. You know, it's like I feel like expanding any further than this is more than what I can personally manage. Like I feel like I can barely manage what I have as it is.
I kind of feel the same way. You know, I've got about 800 gallons. I got two systems in total, about 800 gallons. So how many gallons and how many different systems and tanks do you have?
Two of the systems are about 400, and then there's another that's about 150, maybe a little bit more. So. Close to 1,000.
Yeah. So I kind of feel the same. You know, it's like it's enough. I don't need any more than that.
Yeah, and it's like there's something about going to that next level of going kind of more commercial, like those big coral farm type situations where you got a bunch of employees, and I don't know. I don't have interest in going too big. You know, it's like there's something about this sort of boutique. Like I can really take care of a lot of like every little detail of things, and I can watch it and. Actually, I went to Toronto a couple months ago, and I went to all the shops there. And honestly, my favorite shop was the smallest one that just had the best looking stuff, because you could just tell that the one guy that ran it was just like able to just like kill not kill, just do an awesome job with everything he was doing in there. His fish were super healthy. All his corals looked really good.
Are there challenges being in the garage? You know, do you have any, in terms of getting fresh air into the room where you're at right now? Do you have like an air exchange unit or something?
Honestly, I open up the door to the garage like a couple times a day if I'm around, and
Oh, really?
it basically all the air swaps out. I do have air conditioning in here, like I've got a mini split, so it stays. I kind of keep it around 73 degrees. I thought about keeping it warmer so my heaters wouldn't have to come on as much, because that's a way to do it. Hey, in a bigger sort of farm situation, is to just heat the room as opposed to heat the tanks. But I'd rather, have a little wiggle room than just keep it at, say, 75. I also don't want to be too hot in here either. So
Yeah, no, for sure.
But it's pretty comfy. Yeah.
Rogue Aquariums has a similar setup. He's in the garage. She, I think it's a he, in the garage as well. And garage is insulated and automated. So, yeah, he's got a 600-gallon display and a 87-gallon and a 175-gallon frag tank, sharing a 100-gallon sump. Works well for him. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's and so any plans to build a garage for the cars?
The cars don't really need a garage. They're fine. We're in BC. It's just rain.
All right, man. So you've been keeping reef tanks since 2000, and did you have anybody that kind of like was a mentor or inspired you to get into the hobby? I mean, how did you get into it all?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, my first tank was, I was working in my dad's trade, which is the elevator trade, and I worked with a guy who he was like a maintenance guy, and we went to his place one day for kind of lunch, and he had this like shut down saltwater tank, and it was like the old school like 33-gallon under gravel filter, crushed coral, sand bed. I mean, you could tell it was a tank probably from the 80s or like the late 90s, but super old school tank. And I was like kind of interested in it, and then he was like, "I'll sell you the tank if you want." I think I bought it for like $100, and I just set it up, and I got super into it like right away. I mean, I always kept like freshwater tanks, and common story, right? But once I got into saltwater, it was like, okay, this is like something different. This is like super addictive.
And how long have you been like an SPS stickhead?
Really early on, actually. The first time I saw an acro was probably a couple months into me getting into the hobby, and I was like, I want to grow. I don't know what it was about them. I was just like, I want to grow SPS. Like there's something about the way they looked, or the ability to just kind of grow them and cut them and frag them, and I don't know. I just got super into it really fast. So
yeah, no, it's pretty addictive, that's for sure. So I've got a lot of questions for you in terms of how you like to run a system and all that stuff. But you did us a solid, and you put together this awesome video that you narrated. It's about 12 or 13 minutes long. So folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video. And it's a great video, so sit back and relax and watch the video, and we'll probably have a lot of jumping off points in terms of questions based on what we see in that video. But all right.
This video might actually be an episode from the new season of Hoarders. I'm not sure, but might be featured on the new Hoarders.
Anything else, Adam, in terms of just kind of setting this thing up?
I don't think so. I mean, I kind of just tried to jump through the main systems and kind of show some of the corals, and I don't know.
All right.
I filmed it with my phone, so I'm not proud of filming it with my phone and an orange filter, but we're all so used to it by this point. We know what we're seeing.
I gotta maybe do more of that, because I rarely use my iPhone to film my tanks, but I don't own an orange filter, but
no,
it's probably a lot easier to do it that way, but I always break out the old mirrorless camera and do it the hard way. But
yeah, I mean, all the photography on my website is all with the Olympus TG5. Like I will not put a phone photo on my website.
There you go. Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to show it off in its best form. All right, let's roll this video, and then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, Adam from Frag Garage here. I'm going to give you a little run through my systems in the garage. As you can see, it is a garage, and there's the garage door. This is the main SPS system, LPS system, and then in the back corner there's other SPS sort of quarantine system. So I'll go through them all here. So yeah, this is the first system I'm going to show you. It is primarily LPS and softies. Sometimes when I import corals, I'll put the SPS in here for a couple weeks, kind of as a pre-quarantine. Since there's no other SPS, if there's anything on them, then they won't affect anything else in the system. So, and then the next stage is they go to that system. So I'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, so this tank is 9 feet by 4 feet by 16 inches. And the reason I kind of built it this size was just kind of based on the space I have. I was able to, like, I wanted to be able to walk around it from every side. And plus this garage door is here. So I had to find a way to hang this. The lighting is 10 XR50 in blue Gen 5 Radions, and I kind of built my own rack system out of 80/20 rail, and it's worked out pretty well. I guess we'll just walk through some of the corals here. So lots of really nice Goniopora, some Acans, so zoanthids. I'll just go through my Gonioporas because they're freaking nice. Let's think about a Goni there. Took me a while to get a frag of that. Lots of really nice bright reds, greens, yellows. This one is really, really nice. They're all really nice. All right, and then yeah, this is kind of where I keep most of the hammers and frog spawns, you know, the type of Euphilia that get along with each other. And I would say that 75% of these are grown from my own frags over the years. Actually, when I moved here, this tank was the only one I moved from the old location, and it used to be full of LPS. So when this tank was set up about a year ago, I've just sort of gradually started turning it into the main LPS system. There's some Blastos. Some of the newer imported torches that take a little bit of time to color up. Most of my torches here are also aquarium grown, and actually this is the OG Holy Grail, which I found out fairly recently is bred in captivity. So it was actually a torch spawn that created this variant. So it's probably a unique variant to our aquariums. Yeah, I think the same might go for, this is the master torch in between those guys there. Some more Holy Grails. They're really nice. In this section I keep a little lower light, lower racks, just mostly chalices, Favias, stuff like that, some Lobos. It's like the Miami Hurricane chalice. Likes low light, that's for sure. So flow, I've got 2 MP40s on either side here. Red Sea Gyre 45 on each side here. And then the returns are 2 Core 20s, and I've got those down to about 50%. Just because I find that's about as much as I need. It's more about having the redundancy. Okay, I'm not going to spend much time down here because it's a mess, but there's a calcium reactor. It's a GeoReef 8x18, and that pretty much takes care of, I'd say, 90% of the tank's major element needs, and I dose Kalk at night, kind of compensate for the pH swing. So the pH doesn't actually change much on this tank. Also, this middle chamber, it is on a reverse lighting period. Usually I just turned it on, but there's an ATI Stratton, and I just kind of keep my extra Zoas down here. And yeah, protein skimmer is a Reef Octopus Elite. I think it's the 250. It's a really awesome skimmer for the money, so high recommend for sure. So the only thing I really dose on this system is this Microelements A and B by Fauna Marin, and it's basically the trace elements that you don't get out of your calcium reactor media. So I dose this, they say to do once a week, but I split it up into 2 doses twice a week. So I am running UV on this system. Mostly I added it because I was losing the occasional head of my Euphilia, and I could only assume it was bacterial. So since adding it, it's been like way better. I don't lose almost anything anymore. Occasionally something just comes in rough and you can't do much about it, but I would say just keeping the UV running is probably preventative from spreading bacteria to more stuff. So this is sort of my secondary SPS slash quarantine system, and it's getting pretty full right now. I've been bringing in some orders, so these are kind of at various stages of coloring up. Some of them are starting to look pretty freaking nice though. All right, so this is the main SPS system. It is two 6x3 frag tables by 14 inches high, and they're both plumbed into the same sump. All the equipment is on the other side, so it keeps it kind of separate. And this system has been up since 2020, probably the end of 2020. However, it was all of my SPS got moved from the previous location, so I just moved them all into this system. And you can see it's pretty damn full. Keep more of the frags on this side, more of the old school SPS on this side. And the lighting on these is just like the other quarantine tank. It's Aquatic Life hybrids with XR15s, and then this side has Orfec bars, the other side has Reef Brights. And I kind of like both of them for different reasons, so I just kind of thought I'd try something different on each tank for now. Some Monties I really need to get rid of. They're not worth the real estate. Okay, so I've turned the flow way down and the T5's off so we can see a little more from the surface down. This is my TGC Cherry Bomb, probably one of my favorite tenuous. It's just super nice. Fast grower, actually. I think I started this from a frag in late April last year, and it is the end of June right now, so about 14 months from a frag to that. And I've made lots of frags off of it. Home wrecker, a couple of Walt Disney colonies. We've got the torts, the Cali tort, Oregon tort, and we call this one the West Coast tort. It's pretty awesome too. Rainbow loom. This one is called Lemon Demon, Yellow Fever. There's a few different similar strains, but I would say none of them are quite as nice as the Lemon Demon because it's got that pink in it too. Lots of Hawkins Echinata. That grows really nice and fast for me. This Ghani just has the biggest polyps I've ever seen. It's huge. This is a really great Aussie piece I call Tangerine Shortcake. Another Acropora microclados, like all strawberry shortcakes. This is my home wrecker. The polyp extension hasn't been very good lately, but the color looks pretty good, so not complaining too much. I just get a little worried about it when the polyps aren't out, as usual. Some more firecrackers down there. Love my Latistella species. So one type, there's another type here. Super nice. This one is pretty cool. It's CC Blaze of Glory. Red Planet, always a really nice classic. A few more of my favorite pieces here. The Reef Ref USA Firecracker. This is kind of like a Walt Disney home wrecker morph new piece for me. It's looking pretty cool. Orange Passion, obviously one of the all-time best. This is Gila Monster. I believe this is a Latistella species. This is Four Seasons, which is actually, it's not a millie, it's a hyacinthus, I believe, from Indo. And actually, these are a couple of hyacinthus that are probably from Fiji, and they have a much tighter growth form. This one's probably the same as the TSA Bill Murray, but we don't have that in Canada. So flow on this system, I'm running 2 Vectra M2s, and I have each pump going to both tanks because there's 2 outlets on each tank. So if one fails for any reason, I have the redundancy, and then one of those pumps is on a big ass battery backup. So I get quite a few hours of backup flow out of that, and those run at 100% all the time. Over here I've got a Gyre 250, another Gyre 250, MP40s. Down here there is another Gyre 250 under the racks, and I find this works well because all the detritus generally ends up in this corner, and I just siphon it a couple times a week. The other side is pretty similar. I've got a couple of Gyre 350s, and then another 250 and MP40s over here too. A lot of people ask me what
additives I use, and I try to keep it pretty simple. Probably the main thing is just keeping my nitrates and phosphates up. So I use this ESV ionic nitrate. It is calcium nitrate, I believe, and some nitrate supplements are potassium nitrate. And potassium is obviously a good thing in reef tanks, but I don't like not knowing how much I'm putting in. And if you're adding a fair bit, you need to be careful. Same goes with the Neophos, similar kind of product. So I use these both to keep my nutrients in a good ratio. Elements by Fawn and Marin. I'm just kind of adding these to make up for some of the trace elements that get used by the corals regularly. I'm finding my ICPs are coming back better since I've been using it. I definitely underuse it, and I split it up over multiple doses a week as opposed to just one big dose a week. And it seems to be doing good things. The flatworm stop is probably a little bit more of an unusual thing. I don't have flatworms in this system. However, I found that many years ago when I used to dose it, that my acros just did better, especially compromised acros. So I started using it about a year ago after I had some issues, and things started looking really good. So I've just kept using it ever since.
So major elements, I am using this very large GeoReef calcium reactor. It fits 50 pounds of reborn in it. So I don't have to top it up very often. Nice big reaction chamber. And let's see what my effluent dose right now. It is 42 mils a minute is what's coming out of there. So I split the consumption up between dosing and the reactor. I don't really like to have all my dependency on one method, and I do see benefits to both. So my 2-part is my own bulk additives that I mix up and I add trace to it. And that pretty much does it. Oh yeah, the calcium reactor does turn off at night. This is a newer thing. It comes off at night. And I dose Kalk at night just to make up for the swinging pH. And also my alkalinity stays more stable throughout the day by turning it off at night too, because more of the consumption happens during the daytime hours anyways, so as the pH gets higher. My control panel, definitely not winning any prizes on Instagram, but I have everything there, nice and accessible, and it does the job, so good enough.
Dude, your control panel puts whatever I have to shame. It really? Mine is just a freaking mess of wires. I don't have a control panel. I mean, it's like it's nasty. Whenever I shoot videos, I try to avoid showing that part of my my basement. But all right, some of the comments on the chat here: stunning, full, full,
yes,
gorgeous. Wow. So, dude, that's an insane amount of corals you got in how many 1,000 gallons? You said?
Yeah, it's about 1,000 gallons over all the systems. Yeah, I was telling you when we were watching the video there that I've been kind of in acquisition mode the last couple of years because I feel like there's a bit of PTSD from the shutdown from Indo a few years ago. I was actually in Bali when it happened. I was in Bali in May 2018. And I actually met up with Vincent Chalias, and he showed me one of the farms and the facility there, which was super cool. But he was like, "Yeah, I can't send you anything."
I'm trying to get Vincent.
Literally the day I landed.
I'm trying to get Vincent on the show. So awesome. How did you get into importing corals? What kind of what was the thought process there, and just really the opportunity to cherry pick some pretty awesome stuff?
Yeah, I kind of work with an importer who has a really good relationship actually with Valley Aquarium, and it's just been a really good collaboration for me, and that kind of started about a year ago, and we've been just bringing in orders every few months or so, and it's been cool.
Explain to us out here in terms of that process, bringing in stuff. So you're bringing in wild caught, or is it maricultured corals?
Yeah, maricultured. I mean, pretty much almost all of it, unless you're getting stuff from Australia or something like that. But I mean, it's crazy. The things have really changed a lot as far as mariculture. I feel like, everybody in Indonesia and those countries, those developing countries, they've got smartphones. They know what's what we're paying for stuff out here.
Yeah.
You know, it's all kind of catching up. I mean, it used to be that to get like a nice like red polyp tenuous or something like that, like you would have to bring in wild pieces from Indo, and you'd have to just like bake them and see what colors up and see what they do. And it's like now the farms just have all of that stuff. You know, they've just like they figured out, and like a lot of the stores that are bringing in orders, it's like almost everything is just millies and tenuous. They hardly bring in any other species, which is kind of like a little bit depressing. But
so is a lot of this stuff you're bringing in like sight unseen, or is there like some sort of WYSIWYG element that you could actually cherry pick some corals, or are you basically ordering a certain amount of corals and just kind of keeping your fingers crossed that you get
no, I'm kind of doing some WYSIWYG. It's kind of like, obviously you can't always pick everything. I'm not bringing in a lot at a time either. Like I'll be part of an order and I'll say like 1 or 2 boxes of stuff, and you know, I might be able to pick a handful of them, maybe, depending. And you can. The thing with these suppliers too is you can only ask so many questions. So if you're like, oh, can you do this? And like, oh, can you look for this? And can you do this? They're like, it's like, no, you can ask like one question, one request, and you might get that thing. You know, but yeah, I try to keep an eye out for stuff that's unique and I haven't seen before, because like obviously these mariculture farms, they have brood stock that they make their frags from. And like chances are, if you're getting a coral, it's like, you know, 100 or 1,000 other people have gotten that same coral,
right,
or, you know, more than that. So, you know, like, you know, I'm not going to get too much into the name game thing, but it's like, how many times do we need to give the same coral a new name?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What's your process in terms of when you're bringing those corals in? Do you have a quarantine system, you know, in terms of trying to, you know, for pest prevention?
Yeah, so in the video I mentioned that usually when they first land, I put them in the LPS system because there's no other acros in here. So like say if there was acro eating flatworms or some kind of bugs, like they're not going to affect the other corals in the tank because they're specific to that species, right? So, and then the next stage is they go to the back tank over here. And then yeah, the next stage would be going into the big system. But even at that point, I generally would like rebase and only take tissue. So the chances are low of anything getting in there, but I'm not going to say it's not impossible. It's always possible.
What about dips? You know, I had Ty from Farmer Ty on last week. We did a big deep dive in terms of you know, pests and dips and all that sort of thing. What's your kind of go-to in terms of, you know, dips?
Yeah, and you guys addressed something that was, I think, really important, is the black gray bug thing, because those bugs are way, way, way harder to kill than the red bugs. Like I remember doing interceptor treatments and doing like a double dose, triple dose, and they would come back.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's like, it's good to, I think he was saying a 7 or 8 times dose, and I buy it. Like it's like, and you want them gone for good too. So, but as far as regular dips, I am a fan of the potassium chloride. I'm not as experienced with it, but I have found that it actually really helps with corals that have a bacterial infection too. So like if something has STN, like a little line of recession, and you can kind of see where it's like receding, like a good dip in potassium chloride will kill that. And it's actually, I think it's been like somebody with like a biology background did some testing with brown jelly disease with potassium chloride, and he basically saw it under a microscope that it kills that infection dead. So I think it's good for more reasons than just killing pests. But I also have I have like an agricultural grade of Bayer, and it mixes clear. Like it's not foggy like the stuff you buy at Home Depot or whatever. But like it still scares the crap out of me, because it's like,
it's a pesticide.
I don't know, like should I be? Yeah, like I don't know. And it's like agricultural. It's like hardcore. So you know, so I've got some of that too. So it really depends on what I'm worried about. Like if I just want to do a quick dip for like, you know, those like red planaria flatworms, they just whip off as soon as you put them in Revive, and Revive is pretty gentle. So I'm you know, like potassium chloride is great, but I'm not always in the mood for measuring it out and mixing it up. And like sometimes I want to just like dip a little Revive in, throw the frag in, swish it around, Okay, good. Like it's not a big concern, right? Like
I had like a whole bunch. I talked about this last week. I had a whole bunch of what they're called. I think I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Achial flatworms, or like a red planaria flatworm.
Yeah, they're kind of the ones that kind of go on any LPS. Like they'll go on like
yeah. And you know, so I had them on like, you know, some Goniopora and Alveopora, and I was trying like Coral RX, and I think I might even try to like Revive. And they always would survive. Like, you know, they would just come back. There would be some that would survive. But then I dipped those same corals in potassium chloride, annihilated them.
Yeah, it seems to penetrate because when I dip torches in it too, they kind of fizzle from the inside of the mouth. You know, have you dipped like any Euphyllia in it?
No, it's just those Goniopora and Alveopora.
So I think it kind of gets like right in their sort of gut and like gets in through every part of them. So
right, because
definitely a fan in it. Yeah.
For the Goniopora and the Alveopora, like the tentacles retract into the skeleton, so they're getting protected by the dip. But for some reason, the potassium chloride, maybe it's because of the osmotic shock, they can't escape that.
Yeah, it seems to penetrate. Yeah. So it's definitely a good way to go, and it's cheap.
It's very cheap. I mean, like you know, I said it's like you could get like $50 a 40-pound bag, lifetime supply supply of KCl. So, dude, you mentioned to me a while ago when we were like going back and forth about you being on the show that you had this kind of I don't want to say groundbreaking potential treatment for acro-eating flatworms. But since we're talking about pests, why don't you talk about that? What's a skinny on that? What do you potentially have that might be saving a lot of reefers a lot of headaches?
So this is obviously anecdotal, but it was several years ago when I was treating for acropora flatworms. I did a treatment completely unrelated for clove polyps, for purple clove polyps, with the fenbendazole, which is like the fluke tab.
Yep.
I'll put it up to the. Yeah, and I've heard one other reefer has mentioned this working as well. So if anybody knows anything about treating these clove polyps, it's this medication. I think it affects like snails and worms as well, like even feather dusters. I don't remember any snails dying in my tank when I had put it in, but I did such a low dose that I was like, I'm just going to toss a little, like, a few grams in and just see if something happens. Yeah. Right. And then all the clove polyps melted. But you can't have any soft corals are going to be sensitive. Not all soft corals. Zoanthids and mushrooms seem to be fine, but anything like Nephthia, leather corals, they seem to be sensitive to it. And like, just as a disclaimer, like, as far as I know, it stays like embedded in your rock for quite a while afterwards. So like you might not be able to keep that species of coral in the tank after you've treated.
Could potentially be leaching out of your rock.
Yeah. So going on that, I had treated for these clove polyps, and I knew I had flatworms at the time, and probably, I don't know, a couple weeks after, I just remember checking this sort of usual suspects, like the corals that, you know, were most likely to get reinfected. And I found eggs on an acro, but no adults came off in the dip. So I was like, that's kind of weird. And then like never again did I ever see a flatworm, ever again.
Do you think those could have been just dead eggs?
I mean, I think that like if the eggs were there and the adults weren't, and I hadn't dipped that coral since I had done the treatment, then the chances are good that the adults died from the fenbendazole.
So what do you think? What do you think caused the? I mean, obviously we need folks that have a scientific background to kind of talk about.
Yeah, I would love for somebody to take the potential prospect of this and like try to quantify it somehow and find a way to like do an actual study on it, because I don't know, like I can't say much more about it, but I mean it is a dewormer, and it's like there's probably a select amount of species or whatever that are going to be vulnerable to it. And like, as far as a reef safe treatment, it's not too bad. Like, it's like, obviously, like, yeah, if you can pull your snails out and put them in another system just to be safe, you might lose some of your worms. You might lose, like, those vermitid snails might die. That might be another thing that might die. Some people go insane from those things. So
yeah, do you stress out about vermitids?
I haven't really had much of a problem with them, to be honest. I don't really understand the whole thing about them. Like, I mean, I understand the whole irritating the tissue with the, you know, the feeding strands or whatever, but yeah, I haven't had them like become an epidemic thing. I think I have, like, I don't know, like I've always had some bumblebee snails in my tanks. I don't know if they're doing anything, but
I got to pick up some bumblebees. Yeah. Because I have them in both of my display tanks, but I don't know. I mean, folks say that there's got to be some sort of impact on the SPS, but I mean, maybe it just kind of helps to slow things down a little bit in terms of the growth, right? Maybe that's maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is a little irritation at the base and like a little polyp retraction for a coral to not be in its, you know, thriving, growing mode, right? So
yeah. One of the things you showed at the end of the video, the KZ flatworm, has another, you know, there is anecdotal evidence that has helped as well with acro-rooting flatworms because it causes the acro, maybe I'm going to have this get this wrong, but causes the acro to slime, and that's not desirable for the worms to lay their eggs on the acros. That's my understanding.
I think it sort of just makes it less palatable and just probably the mucus sort of like membrane or the area between where the acro would go or where the flatworm would bite at it is probably just not as easy to get into it. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's more just a preventative thing. But you know, coincidentally, it just seems to make my acros look better. So why not?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah. Expensive though.
Yeah, it's not cheap. So let's dig in a little bit in terms of your setup. I see one question from Flyfisher2, lighting schedule ? So you use these. You've got the aquatic light.
Yeah, aquatic life hybrids. Yeah.
Okay, and you talk about that.
Yeah, I like to call them. They're kind of like training wheels for like reefers that are used to their T5s. it's like my way to start adding LEDs in a like way I can just like transition into it comfortably. But so yeah, the T5s I only run for 6 or 7 hours a day. So like as opposed to the longer 8 or 9 hour period I used to probably do. The LED bars come on for 12 hours and the radions kind of ramp up over the course of 12 hours too. But my peak period on the SPS system is only about 6 hours of like the peak light.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the LPS system, the peak light is only about 4.5 hours. That's actually kind of a worldwide corals thing. They've been kind of pushing that lately, is that, you know, the peak period of light only needs to be, it's not as long as we would have used to have thought we needed. And I think part of that is like, if you think about like the sun moving across the horizon and the, you know, course of the day, it's like, it's only going to hit the corals like at a certain angle for, you know, so long, right? So, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
who knows, right? We're just trying stuff and seeing what works.
Yeah, for sure. So what kind of spectrum do you run? Is it, it seems to be more of a blue light? Is that, or is that just because of the time of the day that we're looking at in terms of the video?
I mean, I think that when I actually look at it right now, it's pretty similar to the like 20K radion kind of look. Like that's kind of what I'm chasing after, as far as like
20K radium,
you know, blueness level. Yeah, radium. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's kind of you know, that's kind of my like classic look, right? Like it's that kind of nice bluish, crisp, white. But then as the day kind of goes on, like the radions go down to their bluer kind of royal blue kind of stage, and then you know, and I kind of enjoy it at all stages of the day, right? So you know.
Yeah, I think you've been following my my live streams and all that stuff. So I've been talking about, you know, I had been a tried and true middle halide guy for years and years and years, and the 400 watt 20K radiums were like my bulb of choice, and I still have them on one of my systems. But I did switch over to LEDs for the new system about 1.5 years ago, and I am definitely digging them. And it's nice to be able to have those kind of different periods of you know, you got maybe a more blue spectrum early on, and then more full spectrum, which is what I like to run for the meat part of the day.
Yeah, and you enjoy different corals at different times of day for the colors that are brought out by those spectrums, which is nice. But actually, something I want to ask you is, what's your opinion on? I mean, I know as far as like, you know, people like us that grow coral, and sell coral as a business, and we're looking for optimization of growth and color, like how long should we keep things around like metal halides? Because if you're growing something under metal halides, chances are you're selling to somebody that isn't growing their corals with metal halides. So like, you know, like at what point do we kind of go like, okay, well, we need to be growing it with the same equipment that they're growing it with too?
Well, I'll tell you, man, I think, in my opinion, at least in my experience, now that I've had the LEDs for about a year and a half and running and conduct, you know, one system LEDs and one system with the halides, I've been doing like a lot of moving back and forth in terms of corals from one system to the other. And, you know, I find that for the most part, the corals are holding the same color in one system that they are in the, you know, versus the other. So I don't see a lot of differences in terms of, you know, when I put them under different lighting and how they behave. You know, some corals like the home wrecker seems like the LEDs more so than the halides, or at least, you know, maybe it's a little bluer, you know, look, more fluorescence is coming out when the blues are out more so. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a whole debate, right? There's a lot of people out there that really feel that metal halides are the best light, bar none, for growing and coloring up corals. But of course, you know, you're an example. You know, I think my tank is an example as well in terms of having LEDs over them. That I think LED lit tanks are, you know, you can't argue with that, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that have great success with LEDs. So I mean, that'll be a big debate, I think, that you know, keep going on.
Well, and also, like, I mean, I don't think people realize too, it's like LEDs still get pretty hot, and on top of that, there's also the transformer that is getting pretty hot too. So it's like, depending on where that transformer is sitting, or the power supply, let's say, it's like that thing's generating heat somewhere too. So I've actually thought about in this space, like trying to get some of the power supplies on the other side of the wall or out of the room, because, you know, it all adds up, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, folks, I want to remind you, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, that would be awesome, and more people can find the stream. And of course, feel free to ask questions. I see there's a couple of questions that I got to go through and just make sure I'm seeing all these questions here. I know there was one question about T5s. Adam, can you talk about your the T5s that you're using there in terms of that hybrid?
Yeah, I'm just using all ATI Blue Plus, and yeah, I don't know what else about them. I mean, they're in the aquatic life fixtures, seem to be pretty good reflectors. Like, I don't know. I mean, the tank still has a flatter look because of it. I don't love the way it looks, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's just the distribution of light is so good. I mean, these tables, like the light just covers the entire freaking table.
Yeah, you got good coverage. You got good coverage.
Yeah, it's really good. So
do you
yeah, and it just gives me options.
Do you at pay attention to par? I mean, do you seek certain par levels for? Let's talk about your acros.
Yeah, I don't own a par meter. I refuse to own one.
Me too.
Feel like
I rented one once.
It's something that, yeah, like it's something I don't want to be too obsessed with, because like I know I can trust my eyes more than I can trust a device. The last time I have a friend that has a par meter, so you know that helps. But the last time we tested, my peak stuff at the surface of the tank was around 500 micromoles kind of thing, and then like the majority of stuff is getting between 250 and 350 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's for me too. I mean, on my halide system, like most of mine, my corals are like in the 200 to 300 range, maybe 350 at most. It's the LED system that you know, I'm like maybe 300 to 350 on the bottom of the tank, and then close to 500 at the top of the tank.
Oh yeah, just because it penetrates really well too.
Yes.
To the bottom.
Yes, and I also have, it's only a 20-inch tall tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm just looking at.
I don't think I had.
There was a follow-up question about the KZ flatworm. Ghouls is asking, do you follow do you dose based on the instructions, the recommended dosage, or do you overdose?
I can't remember. I mean, I'm doing like 10 mils a day on about 400 gallons, so probably a little below. It's more of a prophylactic kind of version of the dose.
So you're going on the low side.
Yeah, so a bottle lasts me like a 1 liter bottle lasts me about 3 months kind of thing.
So talk about your calcium and alkalinity supplementation system. You've got kind of a unique thing going on there. You've got a calcium reactor, and you turn the calcium reactor off at night. Then you dose Kalkwasser at night, I believe. But you also dose 2-part, correct?
Yeah.
How do you manage all that?
I mean, you could look at it as being complicated, or you could look at it for the redundancy part of it, because I think that's more why I'm doing it. And there's benefits to both. Like, I mean, calcium reactor on its own, it definitely like depresses your pH like a lot.
Yeah.
And there's like a few little things you can do to like off gas it and stuff, but they don't do very much. So yeah, I mean, I've done systems on full 2-part. I've done systems on full calcium reactor for years. And then I sort of like, I'm never going to 100% switch from one method to another, like all of a sudden. So at one point I started introducing a calcium reactor back on when I was doing 2-part, and things started looking better. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just kind of split the difference. And then I was finding that like, you know, like the dosing kind of gave me the ability to just like make a little adjustment. So it's like the calcium reactor is like this baseline level of calcium and carbonate that is coming in like constantly. And then just all those little fluctuations, like I can change the schedule for when my 2-part doses, so it doesn't dose during those times of night where the corals aren't growing as much. So I got my alkalinity to a point where it's like, you know, the Trident tests are like hardly change. It's like 0.1 is the difference over the course of the entire day. So I just think any little thing to kind of get more stability is in a system like this. I'm not saying that every person with every reef tank needs to get too obsessed with, you know, the minute little changes in numbers, but I think any little thing you can add to stability when you have like an investment like this is going to be a good thing.
What's your butter zone there in terms of alkalinity?
I kind of shoot for like 8.35. It's like
8.35. Man, that's pretty precise.
Yeah, that's kind of like, okay, well, like I'm fine with it being 8 and I'm fine with it being 8.5. But like that's kind of what I shoot for. It's not like I have a bad day if it doesn't hit 8.35.
So is your Trident controlling? I mean, you've got a lot of you know, different levers there, right? In terms of all the different methods that you're using there. How do you keep that so dialed in?
I would never control dosing with the Trident. I just don't trust it enough for that. But yeah, I just keep an eye on the trends. You know, I keep an eye on like the Trident tests the alkalinity. I keep it just 4 times a day, and then if I'm like making some changes, I might just manually do a couple more tests. But you can kind of see the trends, and over time, you just make like a small adjustment, and you see how it affects the curves of things, and like over time eventually, you know, you kind of figure it out. And it's like, I don't know, being really good at this feels like just being better at like being ready for things that change and things that vary. You know, it's like if you like, for example, like I'm kind of an advocate for ChemiClean, and I know you've talked about that a little bit on here, but if you're going to do ChemiClean, like keep an eye on your alkalinity, because those micro bubbles are going to irritate your corals and they're not going to grow as fast for a day or two. And then your elk might shoot up, and then you might get this big elk spike, and you might start losing stuff. So I think like things like that, it's like keep an eye on stuff, you know. Yeah,
Jake Adams talked about that. He basically uses ChemiClean on a constant basis. I believe that's what he was talking about as a way to kind of you know, keep the system just kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, it's kind of like a little bit of a bacterial reset.
Yeah,
like
right,
I don't think it affects a lot of the good like surface bacterias. I was recommended it from a buddy a few months ago. I had there's a few species that would do this thing for me where it was like pink lemonade, strawberry shortcake, vivid confetti. They would kind of go brown, and it was almost like this brown infection that kind of spread through the tissue. And then eventually they would like STN or RTN. And my buddy was like, he's like, try ChemiClean. I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, it seems to kill some of the bad bacteria. He's like, I think it's bacteria. So like, I was like, all right, I'll try it. I was like, you know, it's like, I don't usually touch stuff like that. It's like, that's like, seems like I don't know, like product like that. You put that in, it just like, you know, kills you. Cyano, that's too good to be true. anyways, so I did it, and these acros, like probably within a month, like started gaining their pigment back, and that brown infection went away.
So hold it, you're dosing a recommended dose of ChemiClean, or are you dosing like a much lower percentage in terms of what's recommended for cyano?
No, I just did exactly the recommendation on the instructions.
So you're doing like a 1-time or 2-time, I guess it's a 2-time hit for ChemiClean, and that's kind of what happened in terms of cleaning up the infections?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems to like sort of like give you a little bit of a bacterial reset. There's a couple, I don't really add bacteria to the tank much, but I put a couple things here. This one I think is really good. This Rebiotic by Faunamerin.
Yeah.
It's like a freeze-dried bacteria, and it's like basically meant for like your surface bacteria, and like kind of old tank syndrome, like just establishing those surfaces with the good bacteria.
So all right,
so I use that every once in a while.
So ChemiClean scares me. I mean, I've used it a couple times for cyano, and it always seems to kind of like cause something else to happen. You know, there's always like collateral damage. Rogue Aquariums is asking, would you advocate using ChemiClean once per month for a display tank? He's asking you. I mean, if you're asking me, I wouldn't.
Oh, no. I would say I wouldn't do it more than maybe twice a year. I don't think it's something that, I think an LPS system, you can probably do it more, but those microbubbles are hard on acros because, like, you know why microbubbles are hard on stuff, right? It's like the way they reflect light. It's like they're kind of like almost like little magnifying glasses that kind of irritate the tissue and cause them to slime.
Yep.
So like, I'm more worried about what's going to happen when I use ChemiClean, you know, as a result of, you know, those swings and stuff and like irritating the tank more than the actual chemical itself. I mean, it's basically just an antibiotic. So
I mean, it would be interesting for somebody to do, and maybe somebody has out there done this as a test. You know, the Aquabiomics. You know, Dr. Eli Meyer, who runs that company. It would be interesting to see somebody do an Aquabiomics test before a ChemiClean treatment and then after, just to see what happens to those good guy bacteria, because that's what scares me about ChemiClean, and that's one reason why I really do shy away from ever using it again, unless it was like a really.
I would imagine, your diversity probably goes down, and it's like some of the good ones and maybe some of the bad ones, but it's all the more reason to just add some new bacteria that you know is going to be some good strains. But actually, funny enough, I was going to say. My Tank of the Month article, which was like, I guess, 2015, I said that I predicted that people in the future will be testing for bacteria.
Did you?
So I talked about it. I was like, I think bacteria plays more of a role than we know. And, you know, years from now, we'll be testing bacteria too. And I think it sounds like that company is still kind of like finding their stride, or it's like there's still work to be done, but I think it's really cool that it's a thing now.
Yeah,
it can tell you a lot, right?
I had Eli on as a guest. I'm going to have him on again in a few weeks. This is interesting. Chris from ACA Aquaculture, I think he's saying they use ChemiClean all the time. Good stuff.
There you go. That's another one.
I did not know that, Chris.
There was someone else that was on a little while back that mentioned they use it in their systems too on a regular basis.
Jake Adams.
No, it was somebody else that was another coral farmer.
Oh. I don't remember
that. Anyways, it's I don't know. I mean, and like I say, it's like if you're doing that reset, if you're killing some of the bad bacteria and maybe some of the good ones, like have a good bacteria product you can add. We just don't know, right? Like
that's the whole thing. It's the unknown in terms of what's going on, and I think. I mean, listen, I think there's it's a blessing and a curse to have all this data that we have these days. You know, as an example, I never used to test for phosphate in my reef tanks. I never ever tested for phosphate up until about 7 years ago. I just never tested for it. So, you know, now I test for it, and I use the most recent test kit I use is a Milwaukee test kit.
Oh yeah, I don't know the Milwaukee, but I use the Hanna. Yeah,
I've used Hanna too. And I'll probably do a video on this, but I've just been so freaking frustrated with the phosphate test kits because, you know, I do the phosphate test kits and get the results, and then I make decisions based on those results.
Yeah.
And it messed. Well, it messed with me recently. It messed with me because I did an ICP test. You know, so I'm using the Milwaukee kit, and it's showing me like, you know, 0.0 phosphates, no phosphates for 2 weeks in a row. I'm like,
zero.
I was like, frickin', I gotta like start dosing a shit ton of you know, phosphate because I got no phosphate in my system. So I was dosing, and using the same stuff that you dose in terms of phosphates, the Brightwell Neophos. I was dosing like 24 mLs a day. And, you know, so I get my ICP test back, and I'm like 0.2 phosphate. I'm like, holy crap. And, one random coral, a beautiful bright pink millie, overnight browned out on me. I was like,
oh, crazy.
Oh, man. It's just because I was paying attention to the freaking phosphate test kit results.
A couple things I would say about that is, I mean, one thing is like these hobby grade kits, we're testing like things in parts per billion. So like, you know, if you scoop a sample of water from your tank, it's like, I mean, I assume that it's fairly saturated, like levels of things are fairly saturated within all the water, but like, you don't know that for sure. Like one scoop could have been 0.02 phosphate and the next one could have been 0.05.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Like, you know, but the other thing is like, and I need to look into this a little bit more, but I've been using the HANA phosphorus, low range phosphorus checker. And I know that phosphorus and phosphate, you can do that calculation. So you kind of figure out how much phosphorus is this much phosphate. I feel like they're not quite, they're different bioavailable forms chemically. And I don't know much about the chemistry of it, but I don't know about if doing that calculation is really a good way to go about it. Does the Milwaukee, is it a phosphorus checker or a phosphate checker?
I think it's a phosphate checker, or it might be phosphorus. I think it's phosphorus. I would have to run into the other room to confirm that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Because if it's phosphorus, it might be on its way to being phosphate. Like I think that's the next thing that happens. So like, you know, you might have just been adding all of that phosphate to the tank, and then like you're checking for phosphorus, and the phosphorus kit doesn't pick that up until it's like, you know, been, I guess, like saturated into the water. And it's, again, like I don't have the chemistry to back it up, but I'm just saying, I'm you know, might be worth something to look into.
So you mentioned that you've dabbled with bacteria dosing. What have you been doing on that front, and how have you been managing that? Why have you been bacteria dosing? Just to potentially put more good guy bacteria in there?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of one of those things, like it's either going to do like nothing or probably something good. It's unlikely, I mean, unless your nutrients are riding that line of like rock bottom, you're not going to drive your nutrients down lower than what is healthy for the system. So like, you know, add some good strains. Actually, I kept this one close by. I think that this bacteria is awesome. This is the nitrobiotic by Tropic Marin. And I have a system in the local fish store that I run, and I've had dinos in there since January, February. And I tried UV sterilizer, and they're like the big globby type. They're not like the finer kind of ones that look more like cyano. They're like the big kind of globby type. And I tried Microbacter 7, and I tried Razor, and I tried a bunch of things, and nothing worked. And then I did one treatment of this nitrobiotic, and I only go into the store maybe once or twice a week. And the next time I went in was probably a week later. It was almost all gone. And then the next time I went in, like no dinos at all. So I don't know what it is about this stuff. I imagine some of the strains are probably in Microbacter 7 too. But I wish, the nice thing with this bacteria is they actually tell you what strains are in it.
Oh wow, that's
Microbacter good. 7. I don't know if they tell you what strains
I don't think so.
are in there.
Yeah, that's kind of rare. But that's kind of rare for a manufacturer to like list what they actually have in their product.
Yeah, I think I know, and I think more of them should freaking do it because, you know, especially Coralline Zook. This has purple bacteria, which I think metabolizes sulfates. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know that about Microbacter 7 or what it's doing, but
yeah, I dose both MB7 and Clean on a weekly basis, And you know,
really?
I did it for a couple of reasons. One was to help, you know, control some green and red algae. I took my Cato offline on both systems, so that's definitely been great because, you know, every once in a while my Cato would crash, a pain in the ass to kind of like keep it, you know, in terms of the maintenance and all that stuff. But you know, it also helps with the nitrate and the phosphate control. So one question that Rogue Aquariums had for you earlier on was, Adam, do you have a hard time keeping your nitrates and phosphates elevated? And I think you answered that question in the video, right? Because you dose both ESV, nitrate.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I didn't say why, but I just think in a system that's like so full of coral, like you know, you get to a point where unless you have a huge fish load and you're feeding like crazy, like you know, my systems like over the years have always run low nutrient. I've just always had to feed more and you know, and I'd rather have to go that direction than the other direction. You know, trying to lower phosphates is harder than adding them, you know.
Yeah.
Way harder.
Yeah. Well, you know, corals definitely suck up a lot of nitrates and phosphates. You know, I had I've been redoing my 187 gallon tank, so I've been kind of like, there's been a net loss of corals in that system since I've been kind of pulling out some major colonies and trying to frag stuff and keep some larger chunks, but it's definitely been a net loss in terms of corals, and yeah, so now my nitrates and phosphates have been you know, going up, and I've got a little bit cyano in parts of that system. So it's something that it's a delicate balance. You know, you don't realize when you have a full mature reef tank with a lot of corals, that's kind of like the main thing, right? In terms of the corals, the main
nutrient export
is the corals.
Well, and like that's something I have to consider too. Like I mentioned in that video, I'm going to remove those Monty colonies that are like probably like 15, 16 inches. And I'm not going to do that all at once. Like I'm probably going to like cut some pieces from one, like maybe take half of one, you know, 1 week, give it a week, half of the other one, give it a week. Like, you know, these things affect the system a lot. Like, you know, it's just all these little preventative things to having spikes in any way whatsoever. So
yeah, for sure.
How much did you remove at a time? Did you remove some large colonies, like multiple at a time, or was it kind of one here and there?
I've been trying to do this like really, really slow and just try to like do maybe like 1 or 2 large colonies a week to make sure, because you know, when I you know, the other thing that was happening is that my alkalinity and the calcium the alkalinity really would be going up, right? Because there's just less coral to suck up the calcium and the alkalinity. So I would certainly see a spike on that front. You know, I mean, they say nothing good happens with reef keeping when you do it fast. So that's just been my my you know, words to live by, is just to keep it slow and just to not do it you know, too quickly, and just time is on your side. So another question that I was going to ask you, Algae Warrior asked it earlier on. Adam, do you use any coral food to broadcast or direct feed?
Yeah, I've been using Reefroids a little bit here and there, and that's another thing that'll raise phosphates. Actually, on that subject too, I mean, another reason I use my calcium reactor is because the calcium reactor media adds phosphates, and that's another way of me adding phosphate to the tank, because I think that's probably why when I did add a calcium reactor back on, my tank started doing better. It's probably that extra, you know, extra bit of phosphate that's coming in. But yeah, what was the question again?
Using any coral foods or you know, the broadcast?
Yeah. So other than that, for the LPS system, when I feed my frozen food that I feed my fish, sometimes I turn all the pumps way down and I just baste all of that food into my like Euphilia gardens, and then the fish just feed on whatever's left, you know. But I don't really see much point in putting Reefroids in the LPS system. I feel like the particle size is a little bit too small. But, you know, and I don't know, like, what's your opinion on Reefroids and some of those foods? I actually got Chris from Captivate sent me some samples, and I got his coral food, and I thought that was a really good one. Like, I feel like I actually saw like coral polyps like take it in. I don't know, like, yeah, I'm not sure about all the other foods necessarily.
I have to try. You're talking about Chris Wood, at Captivate. I have to try.
Yeah. That was an awesome stream, by the way. That was like his knowledge is like man.
Oh yeah.
Like, I watch these, and I hope that on one episode I can take like a couple little pieces of things, and that one was just like so many, like,
there was a lot,
thing after thing. That guy is super knowledgeable.
There was a lot of information to digest. Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, watch it again.
I just actually started using his salt. Well, in fact, I met him. I was down at Reefapalooza in New York last weekend, and Chris lives nearby in New Jersey, so he wasn't at the show, but I met him like after the show, and it filled my car up with about 1,000 pounds of his salt. I barely made it over the
Nice.
barely made it over the mountain pass going home.
Oh man, you're
I was loaded
awesome.
loaded down
Yeah.
with 1,000 pounds worth of salt mix from Captivate, but I did start using that, so I'm expecting some awesome things. What about you? What salt are you using for your systems?
I've been using Brightwell because that's what I kind of get through the local store that I collaborate with. But we actually just switched to Red Sea. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Well,
actually, I have a salt joke for you. I've been working on this salt joke.
Bring it.
Okay. So one reefer says to another reefer, "Man, you got to try this new salt. I did a water change, and my tank looks way better." And then this other reefer says to another reefer, "Man, you got to try this new salt. I did a water change, and my tank looks way better." What's the common denominator?
Everything looks much better with the new salt.
No, they all did a water change.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's it, huh?
It's not that funny. Yeah, it's like, it's like, I think what it just comes down
right
to
over
is
my
like
head.
A lot of the salts are the same. The salts are all the same. They're all similar. They're all just trying to like make a composition of
that would be a controversial topic there. I think we could get a lot of good healthy debate on that topic. I don't have the data to back up that, but I'm sure there would be a lot of folks out there that would love to debate that point with you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say that like, something like Instant Ocean is very different than something like Tropic Marin or something like that. There's obviously the more reef grade salts, and then there's the more like fish tank grade salts. But
well, I'll tell you, man,
I don't think I've ever switched to a new salt and noticed that like, my tank has looked way better after I've done a water change. It's like my tank probably looked better because I did a water change.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna document my system in terms of this change in salt. I mean, the one change that
I'm curious. Yeah.
The one thing that I noticed in terms of my so I use these like 50-gallon drums for my saltwater makeup system. One drum is for RODI water, and the other drum is for the salt that I'm mixing up, saltwater I'm mixing up, and so the saltwater vat that I had all the Instant Ocean salt I've been keeping in was so frickin' dirty with residue. I spent a couple hours yesterday with that power washer I have, just blasting the inside of that thing and trying to get the residue off. So that is the one thing I used to hate about Instant Ocean was just it was dirty. But I mean, listen, it my tanks did well, so I can't complain too badly.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I definitely agree. I guess my premise was more based on this sort of higher end salts. I mean, I think at that point it's like it's all pretty close, but also, I mean, we're seeing salts like the ESB is like a 4-part salt.
That's the Captivate.
It's a 4-part as well.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to know how things are doing.
So there was another question here that I wanted to ask you that somebody had been asking, and all right, I just what was the question? Somebody was asking. I'm completely blanking, but let me ask you another question, and then I'll figure it out in terms of what the viewer question was. All right, let's take a step back. And I know when you were on Devin's live stream, you talked about coloring up corals, the keys for coloring up corals. What would you say, if you had to summarize that in the three most important things to keep corals colorful and growing fast, what would you well, let's stick with color. What would you say would be the 3 keys to
Yeah,
success?
I mean, I would say that nutrient levels are probably the most important thing that you can look at. Like if you don't do anything else and you just try to keep a good nutrient ratio and you give the corals lots of flow and lots of light, like, I mean, those are just going to be like a, prerequisite for someone that's, say, keeping SBS. I don't know. That's about it. I mean, everything else is just kind of like, trace elements we're still learning a lot about, like Andre Mueller is the moonshine guy, right?
Yeah.
He even said something like you have to do all the elements for it to work. Like he's like, you can't just do a few of them. He's like, there's something about how they all work in conjunction with each other that makes them work. So
right.
I don't know, like, which actually just could be really good marketing, because of course you have to do it all. You can't just be like, well, it's this one element that really makes a big difference. But no, I think it's true, because it's like there's something about the ionic balance of all those elements coming together that that helps for color. But yeah, like I say, I think nutrients is going to be the #1 thing.
And I might have missed this target range for nitrates and phosphates.
Yeah, I've experimented a little bit over the past year. Like I tried my nitrates about as high as about 25. It wasn't bad. I think that, but coming down to the ratio, I think having them that high, my phosphates were probably too low. So if we're kind of going to look at a ratio that seems to work for a lot of people, it's that sort of 100-to-1 ratio. So, if your nitrates are 10, then your phosphates should be 0.1. Interestingly, though, I recently saw there's actually a Reef Dudes from a couple of years ago, but it's Lou from Tropic Marin, and he was saying that a 10-to-1 ratio was what he recommends, which seems crazy to me, because if your nitrates are 1, then your phosphate would be 0.1, which seems really high.
Yeah. Interesting.
But so lately I kind of tried to close that gap a little bit more. So I've been running my nitrates from about closer to 10, and my phosphate, I've actually had a lot of trouble raising it, but it's been running at about 0.03, 0.04. But ideally, I would try to get it up to 0.1.
How much of the neophos do you dose when you're, kind of low on phosphate?
I've been dosing about 25 mils a day, about the same as what you were saying.
And how many gallon system?
And about 400 gallons.
Yeah. Yes.
And I have hardly seen any difference in phosphate. But again, it's that thing I was saying about the phosphorus versus phosphate checker. It'd be great if there was somebody with some chemistry background in the chat that could say something about phosphorus versus phosphate and like the bioavailability and the testability. I'm not sure, but
how often do you do ICP tests?
I've been doing them about once every. I said I was going to do them once a month, but it's been more like every month and a half. I do have all the bottles as well. I've been kind of sticking with the Fauna Marin because that's my ICP that I use, and so I have all of their element bottles. And I get a test and I make the adjustments, but I make the adjustments at about half the speed that they say is safe to do. So if they say you can raise it by this much per day, I do half that, because why not, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not just go extra careful with it?
Yeah. No, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
pH. Did we talk about pH in terms of what your...
we didn't talk, no.
Yeah,
not yet.
What range do you like for your systems?
I mean, what I would like would be like a steady 8.5 or something, but I can't really do that.
Keep the garage door open.
Yeah, no, I've done that. And the oxygen exchange isn't a big thing, but the HVAC thing actually, or not, what is it? Did you get one of those set up?
Air exchange.
Yeah. So the SPS system runs about 8.2 to 8.5.
That's pretty darn good.
And I do have algae, or I do have CO2 scrubbers on it, and they take a line from outside. However, I've learned recently that the recirculating makes your media last way longer. So I don't know. Do you do CO2 scrubber? Or?
Never tried that.
Well, so the thing I hate about it is it's like you know, it's like you're on a subscription to CO2 scrubber media, right? So you just have to keep refilling
That's
it.
what I keep
And
hearing.
the LPS system like that, the Reef Octopus that's on there, like it just pulls so much air and it injects so much air that it'll burn through like a whole chamber of CO2 scrubber media in like less than 2 weeks. So I've recently been was talking to another reefer that he really advocates for the recirculating, because like the thing is, if you continue to just bring in new air into the skimmer, then you're just bringing in more CO2. Whereas if you're just recirculating it, then you're recirculating that air that has already had a lot of the CO2 pulled out of it already. So apparently your media lasts way, way longer. So
Interesting.
but there's other challenges with that, right? Like the thing that scares me about it is that there's a possibility of like moisture getting into there. So you have to have like a moisture trap for it. And then, you know, like if moisture was able to get into the media, it's basically like pelletized calcium hydroxide. So if that gets into your tank, like you could crash your tank. But obviously there's safe ways to do it. I just need to do the research and get it set up.
Yeah, Great Bearded Reef, our moderator Paul is saying, when I ran CO2 scrubber, it definitely worked and lasted a lot longer while recirculating.
Yeah, yeah. It makes sense, right? Because you're just recirculating that air that's already been scrubbed. So
Yep.
yeah.
Here's a good question from Ghouls. What method does Adam use to dose Kalk?
So I'm actually kind of doing the Chris Meckley saturation. So I think it's 6 grams a gallon. And I remember him saying that if you mix that up, it pretty much saturates and you almost get no leftover in the bottom. And yeah, so I make up about 15 gallons. Actually, the jug is right here, which is very temporary, but it goes to both tanks. It goes to both of these tanks. So eventually they'll have their own. But this is just a quick and dirty way to do it. But I make that up about once a week. And yeah, I just I fill that about 3/4 full, and then I just stir the crap out of it, and then I top it up, give it a good shake, and I have a little power head in there that'll run when I first mix it, but I look in the bottom when it's empty, and there's barely any calc left in the bottom, so it almost all
Yeah,
gets
you don't. I'm doing the same methodology. You know, I've got
Yeah.
I've got 2 30-gallon drums, one for each system, and I just basically, you know, when I run out of the solution, I just put the 2 cups of calc wash, or pretty much is what I use in the each 30-gallon drum. Then I turn on the RODI water and fill it up to the top, and so that mixes it all up. And then I don't nothing else. I don't stir it. I don't pump it for a couple of weeks. It lasts 2 or 3 weeks, and it's still fully saturated, super saturated. Like a 12.5 pH. I
think that there'll probably be some ways to improve the exposure to oxygen in this. Like I seal the top up, but you can't. Because Chris Wood was saying, he's like, even your calc powder, you want to keep it concealed, so it doesn't even get exposed to air. So calc seems to really not, the more you can keep it completely airtight, the better, right? But yeah, do you keep a pH probe in your
calcium reactor?
System? Yeah, your calc reactor.
No, I don't. I just basically have. Sometimes I'll take a sample when it's dosing into my sump. I'll grab a cup and just grab some of the solution from the cup and then stick my pH probe in there just to double check that. I also have a pH pen that I could use for that same purpose.
Yeah, and it's generally in that kind of range.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Scott Oliphant is making a statement about the phosphates, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher this thing, but I appreciate, Scott, the detailed explanation. Bioavailable phosphates would be organophosphate compounds. Most of aquarium phosphorus is as orthophosphate and organophosphates, ATP, DNA, etc. I probably butchered the pronunciation of all that, but
yeah, but both check for orthophosphate. So I guess he's kind of saying that if they're using the similar reagents, then they're probably picking up on the same chemical reaction. So maybe my speculation of the phosphorus versus phosphate is is not true. But I can just tell you that I can put a bunch of that frickin' neophos in and see almost no change sometimes, and I'm like, where's it all going? You know, like.
All right,
Yeah.
so dude, we're coming on close to an hour and a half here, and we haven't talked a lot about corals. And I wanted to get your thoughts.
All right.
I know you mentioned in your video that the Reef Raft Firecracker was like one of your favorites, or maybe the favorite, SPS coral that you had in your system.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got that as a frag from Abe at Coral Euphoria. I don't know if you know Abe. He's
Nice.
yeah,
and
but mine crapped out on me a few months ago. I was really bummed out about that. It was like one of the few frags I had in that Peninsula tank that just did not do anything for months and months and months. It held its color, but then all of a sudden it's just like poof, and that stuff happens. But so besides the Firecracker, in terms of SPS, what else do you really what do you dig?
Yeah, I don't know. It's always a hard question. Like, there's a lot of the classic stuff.
What are your top,
really
besides the Firecracker, what are your top 3 SPS corals?
I think like Orange Passion has got to be up there. And like, I know it's kind of generic, but Walt Disney too is just like such a great looking coral. Like, that being said, I mean, as far as newer corals, like, I don't have any. I had a couple frags of Speciosa, like from Malaysia, and they were some of the nicest pieces I've ever had. But like, most people have said that they don't grow like. Have you ever seen somebody grow a Speciosa frag into a colony? Like, I haven't seen anybody post like a photo or something where they're like, here, check this out. I grew this over, year and a half. Here's the colony from the frag. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, the other thing too is like, I don't know, like, it's surprising we're not seeing more of them on the market. Like, I think maybe the import side of bringing stuff from Malaysia is a little more difficult than Indonesia. But anyways, some of those corals look amazing to me. Like, as far as just like, like literally in person, that coral looks as good as any photo on the internet. Nobody could over Photoshop it because it still looks that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few of those classics, like even like the Hawkins Echinata.
I love
like
that
an
coral.
all-time favorite. It's just, I remember the first time some of these ones, you have to go on that first initial reaction, right? Like, imagine if Garf or like a bonsai coral was just discovered, like, came out on Reef Builders article, and they're like, check this out.
Crazy.
We would be like, holy crap, this like solid purple coral with like neon yellow polyps. Like, that's insane. It's like, we're just so used to it. So like, if somebody comes here and visits and they're not like a non-reefer and they take a look around and, you get this really pure kind of like first impression from people. Like, they kind of go like, oh, that's really cool. It's like, you know what? That is really cool. Like, I don't appreciate that coral enough anymore because, I'm looking at the newest coral that I got.
Dude, I agree with you. Like a $30 bonsai frag or whatever, you want to, give the name to it, is to me like one of the coolest looking acros out there. I mean, the contrast in terms of the skin and the polyps, it's like unmatched, and plus, on any lighting kind of conditions, that thing still pops. So
totally.
And I agree completely with the Ora Hawkins. I think, how many corals out there are like this solid turquoise, green kind of aqua coloration, and that bottle brush formation in terms of the branches. Yeah, I'm a big old school guy in terms of when it comes to corals. What about so you got like a whole ton of LPS too, man? I mean, are you is like the torch is the the thing that gets you going the most in terms of LPS, or is there something else?
The Gonioporas lately, I think, are like, as far as corals that are coming out of the farms that, like, we haven't seen anything like before. I think Goniopora are kind of blowing my mind more than anything because, like, like, as the years go by, it's like you see, like, generally what within that sort of species or genus or whatever, you kind of go like, okay, well, like, there's red ones and then there's green ones, and there's green ones that like have some yellow eyes or whatever, and they're kind of cool. And then all of a sudden we get all these freaking crazy rainbow ones.
Yeah.
It's like these colors we never never could have imagined. And obviously, like, they're just the guys in these places where they're collecting, they're just looking for stuff, and whatever they can see, I don't even know what they see when they're collecting. Like, maybe the color that they see when they're collecting it is like oh, this might be kind of cool under blue LED. Like, they don't know, bring it back to the farm. It's like, you get some special pieces. But yeah, no, probably the Goniophoras I would say I'm the most obsessed with right now for acquisitions.
It's pretty awesome, I mean, things have really changed a lot versus years and years ago when you just couldn't keep a Goni or an Alveopora alive, and these days with all the farm raised stuff, they're just so much hardier, and it's like I got a problem because I'm growing Goniopora and Alveopora like out the wazoo, and it's like I don't I gotta cut them back, I'm like fragging.
Yeah. They frag well, at least, like they do seem to respond well, so. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, the torches are obviously, there's some really, really great variants. And like I was saying in the video, I've got a couple variants that I think are just aquarium born. There's a shop in Montreal that had big torch spawning, all of his torch spawned, and he got a bunch of unique variants out of it. So, if we could get a little more into the actual science of breeding these corals, that would be super, super cool.
Yeah, you actually, I think it was an article you wrote on Reef Builders. You actually had a coral spawning situation with a Cali tort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was the Cali tort, and it had pink eggs, like bright pink eggs. But actually, on my YouTube, I posted a video from a few months ago of like a mass coral spawn that I had in this SPS system.
Oh, you did? Recent.
And yeah. So I had probably about 20, 30 pieces all spawning at the same time.
Wow.
And like when the Cali tort spawned, it was the only one. But yeah, I don't know if I pissed the corals off by turning on the lights and making a video. Like they're probably like, man, this is personal. We're spawning, man. Leave us alone. But yeah, so actually Fox Flame was one of the ones that released eggs too. But
anything in common in terms of that recent episode versus the one that happened 2 years ago, like Moonlight or Moon Phase? I mean,
I don't really do Moonlight stuff, but the one thing I did note is that all the things that spawned were all corals that had been with me for a long time. And I think there's something like in nature, like I think corals spawn like there's like a certain day every year and they all do it at the same time. It's like this like schedule, right? So it's like they're all synced up to do it at the same time. And I think that these old school corals that were in this tank, they probably like start to forget that cycle. Like that cycle gets like screwed with. I don't know how often like Acropora species like carry eggs, because obviously like they have to like be at a certain level of health to invest the energy in producing the eggs in the first place. You know what I mean? It's not like just like all of a sudden like corals are like, oh, I think I'll spawn. Like it's like obviously there's an investment leading up to that time where they're like, and it probably happens in our systems, in good healthy systems, more than we know. It's just like, how often are you looking at the tank at 1 a.m. in the morning with a flashlight? I just happen to catch it,
right? Because
I check it before bed sometimes, right? So, yeah, quite a few did it. It was mostly stags, and a few other like random pieces, but there were eggs everywhere. And I thought about taking off my filter socks and seeing if I could sort of cultivate anything in the sump and like maybe putting a light in the sump, because I figured most of the eggs would probably end up in the rock in the sump.
Yeah.
But I don't know. A friend of mine was saying, he's like, what you should do if that happens again is play Sounds of the Reef while they're doing it, because he's like, apparently like the call, like the crack of the pistol shrimp and like those like little reef sounds, like they like the I guess the eggs like are called back to the reef as they're free floating in the water from these sounds and vibrations. So he's like, play reef music in the background.
Some romantic reef music.
I don't know. Yeah, romantic. Yeah, getting it on music.
Yeah. All right, a couple more quick questions from me. Corals that you are looking to add that you don't have. What's on your wish list, if anything?
Well, definitely the speciosa. But I would like to get some colonies of things, not just frags. Yeah, like I don't know. Those are just some special corals, and that was kind of something that came out of the shutdown of Indo, is that like importers started looking at the nearby countries in that kind of part of Southeast Asia, and they were like, oh, Malaysia's there, and then it's like it's like, what do you guys got? The water's pretty close to Indo, so it's probably similar. And then it's like, whoa, this crazy species is like, super, super nice. Other than that, I would like to kind of get a little more diversity in my LPS. Like I feel like I'm pretty good at SPS, and I'm like all right at LPS. Like I haven't really dialed in like things like Scullies and Welsos and stuff like that. So I'd like to get some really nice rainbow master kind of grade. I guess meat corals or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Going back to the SPS, what about like the rainbow splice? Or do you have?
I have a couple frags actually, and
what's been your experience?
They have more of the green, but apparently, like even if you just have a little speck of the red, it can start to sort of take over. Like, I didn't put it in the video because they're fairly small still, but I'm kind of late to the game because it is a Canadian coral. Well, I mean,
right, Reef Rock Canada, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jay seems to like get like weird morphs and things happen in his system. I actually tried. So I have the new one, the grafted Anacropora. That's like the Jason Fox TNT and the goldenrod. I actually put those two corals next to each other and let their branches kind of rub up against each other because it's like maybe the graft will start.
Yeah.
And I have a piece of the grafted version too. And they kind of just like irritated each other.
Oh no!
So I think it's probably more of a sharing of proteins or pigments or zooxanthellae or whatever.
Yeah.
But But I'm always looking out for things like that. Like I've got in this tank, I've actually got it's a tort. I don't know if it's Cali tort or something similar, but there's a neon super super bright Acropora Florida Slimer type, and I noticed there's these little neon yellow green streaks that are starting in the tort that's right next to it.
Oh wow, cool.
So I think these corals that are super heavy on the green fluorescent proteins, and a coral like that is you can't get any more green fluorescent than that.
No.
I think it's got a chance. We keep all these corals from different regions and stuff in close proximity. Eventually some funky stuff is going to happen. So and as far as I know with the splice, Jason, it was a green fluorescent protein, and he took that piece and specifically set it aside, kept an eye on it, and then it did what it did, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool though.
Have you heard of the TSA's new Fruity Pebbles splice?
Yeah, I actually just saw that on Instagram the other day. That's
pretty wild.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, and it's hard. In Canada, we can't. I think the corals that we have that are from your US vendors, they've been sort of snuck over here or imported very carefully, or who freaking knows, right? I've got pieces that I know somebody brought back, probably in a way over the border.
Is there a coral underground railroad or something?
Okay. Maybe, I don't know, because I know I have name pieces that but that also comes down to the name thing. Is this at a certain point it's I have corals that I've brought in, and I'm well, this looks a lot like this, and it's if I put it next to it for 6 months and they look exactly the same, it's isn't it that? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's back to the name game thing, but
so you got Jay, Unorthodox Reef neighbor there, Adam. I should send you some of my random splice.
Random splice.
I've never heard of a random splice.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's cool that.
I'm sorry, unless Jay, we talked about
right?
that when you're on my on the show. Then I'll apologize for not remembering that. I don't recall the random splice. Anyway, dude, listen. We've been chatting for a long time, so I want to be respectful of your time. Anything else, Adam, you want to mention before we sign off for the night?
Well, I had this thing I wanted to say, and then Farmer Ty pretty much said exactly what I wanted to say last week. But yeah, I mean, just take a step back from your tank, and the thing about reef tanks is it's when it's doing well, enjoy it when it's doing well, because it's not always going to be doing well. There's always going to be something, and I think that it is really important to just acknowledge it and enjoy it, and not get too obsessed. And that's kind of about it. I mean, I don't know. And I think as far as people that farm coral too, it's try to do some things differently. Like try to like just try something a little differently, and then like share that knowledge if you make a discovery. Like I think we're all kind of like helping each other out and trying to learn and trying to like grow this hobby. And there's a lot of like really good knowledge coming from non-scientific people like us. So just keep trying to learn and share and spread the good stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, sharing knowledge is key and certainly beneficial to everybody involved. All right, dude. So, any thing you want to say in terms of how people can find you in Canada? Because folks in the U.S. don't bother this man to try to have him ship corals to you, right?
Yeah. So, like, shipping to the States for me is a complicated process with CITES and permits, and it's not impossible, but it would only really ever work if it was, high volume. Yeah, you can find me at fraggarage.ca, and I ship almost all the way across Canada, but some locations are a little remote and far. And I will be doing a Canada Day sale because we have Canada Day tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
And so watch for that. It should be posted probably tomorrow morning or tonight, depending on how fast I get onto it. So yeah.
Sweet. All right, dude. Well, listen, Adam, this was great. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I'm sure we could have gone on much longer than we did.
Probably. Well, we'll do it again.
Absolutely, dude.
And I just wanted to say too, like what you're doing here is really awesome, and like I don't think you get enough props for like how professional of an interviewer, and I mean I can really tell you have that like media background, so it's really awesome. Just keep getting these, knowledgeable people on. And
yeah, listen, I mean, I was on the advertising side of the media business. So I was never on the actual camera or microphone side of the media business. But maybe it was just being around all those folks. Maybe it rubbed off. I did like, I was on the college radio station. I did have a radio sports call-in show. So maybe that's where I kind of like this all began back when I was in college. Yeah, I don't know. But no, listen, thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it. Certainly have you back on. And also want to thank the sponsors for the live stream, both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. And thank you folks for tuning in and contributing to the conversation. Appreciate that. And finally, a big thank you to Paul, the moderator. Thank you, man. Also want to let you folks know that all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. My next Rappin With ReefBum live stream will be next Thursday, July 7th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Luca Martino, from Mahina Corals. So it should be another great show. And if you want to catch the full upcoming schedule of guests, visit reefbum.com on the YouTube section. Until then, be safe and be well, and we will see you next time.